Hey, welcome to the Sounds on Vinyl show. My name, as always, is Phil Boyer, and with me, I've got a couple of Vikings, Mike and Soren, who are ready to drink from the horns and rape and pillage all the record stores so we can get all the vinyl we can handle and talk about on this show. Mike, Soren, how the hell's it going over there in the land of Scandinavia?
Well, the usual raping, pillaging, burning cities down.
Just your usual everyday weekday.
That's what we do. Yeah.
And learning about records.
Learning about records.
Because we're not barbarians anymore. Jeez. What the heck?
You do it with sophistication these days, right?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
All right.
Sophistication.
All right. Well, we're picking up
That's
where we
way
left
to
off
go.
last week, talking about labels. And Mike's going to kick us off with the Casablanca label.
Oh, look at this beauty. Can you see it?
Yes.
Oh, there we go. This is one of my all-time favorite labels. You know why?
Can't imagine.
Could you? No.
Because it's Rush,
It's from this
your
little
favorite
band. I'm just going to hide behind
I was going to
this.
say the label that
Pretend
Donna
I didn't
was
hear
released
that.
on.
You see?
Mm.
Mm-hmm. That's a beauty in a box right there. No, talking about labels, Casablanca Records was founded by a guy called Neil Bogart, who used to work for Warner Brothers, and he wanted to start his own label where he can control everything. So he started Casablanca Records. And this is the first label. It looked like this. Because it's like Soren said in the last episode, labels change with time. So this is the first label that got released. It's the blue label with, you can see over there, you got Neil Bogart. Humphrey Bogart over there.
He has a cigarette in his mouth, right? On the first label? Yeah.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. So every now and then you change it up, and it's quite interesting to see all the changes. I'm going to show you a different one, because we're talking about vanity labels, and this is like the first part of this. So that changed it up a bit. You can see Kiss was getting bigger and bigger. So this is from Love Gun from 1977, and you can see Kiss there. And still with the Casablanca logo and the camels. This is called the Camel label, if I'm not mistakenly.
Because there's they changed a lot. They changed the colors, added some camels, got rid of Humphrey Bogart, and
and then you got this one, which is then it's full on vanity.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you get the Dynasty right there. It's the Dynasty label. And then you see they changed it up completely. It's a picture of a Kiss with the Kiss logo and so forth. And you can see it's a tiny Casablanca label down at the bottom. So, but it's, with me and Casablanca, it's sort of like there is a thing. So it's not only Kiss. So in the dollar bin, I had to go with trying to find something different on that label. And then I found, Donna Summer. Yeah, there she is.
There you go.
She is also on Casablanca. Yeah, with the Camel label.
What's the story of Donna
there.
Summer? Because was it Gene Simmons that got her signed to Casablanca?
The biggest rumor is, but I don't know for certain, but the rumor is that he's a latest man, of course. So I think so. The information that I have is that she got signed because of him.
Okay.
So because Neil was a big disco fan, so he was going towards that end of it. They released Parliament, and they released The Village People, and so forth, and became after Kiss, they became a disco label, if you will.
But I don't think
everything is
about Casablanca, because as far as I know, Casablanca was never intended to be a rock label or a heavy metal label, or it was actually just flamboyant, fun pop disco music. And if you have bands like Parliament, and you have Donna Summer, there's a band called Angel as well that was on Casablanca, but they're all kind of groups with a lot of theatrics and fun in a way. Entertainment. Yeah,
it is. And they try to venture out and do, because I got somewhat of a unnamed band. They're called Trigger, and they're from New Jersey. And actually, Gene Simmons of Kiss, he found this band and helped them to get signed to the label also. But it's like you said, it wasn't a rock and roll label. So I think my take on this is that they got a really, really good manager in Bill O'Coin, who I think sold the idea about Kiss to Neil, and said they're going to be the biggest band in the world. You're going to make a pile of money, so I think you should sign them. So I think he did it as a favor to Bill, because they became partners at the end, and this is like also one of those bands that got signed to the Casablanca label, and you can see there it's in the mid to late 70s. It was the yellow label right there, but nobody has ever heard of this band. I didn't. I found them in a forum with relations to Kiss, because they got a sound engineer called Corky Stasiak, who was present at Destroyer, recording of Destroyer. I believe he was a sound engineer on that one.
And so Dynasty as well, right?
Yeah, and Dynasty as well, yeah. So it's sort of like a history in the making. You have to dig and to find stuff, and I find that stuff really exciting. So that's my.
Do you know how?
That's my take on this.
Do you know, because Kiss's albums were repressed a lot of times during the 70s, up until 80, I guess, when Polygram bought Casablanca, they changed the labels as well, but they were repressed throughout the 70s. How do you pinpoint a first pressing and a later pressing by looking at the Casablanca label? Because you showed the blue one and you showed the one with the camels, but are there any other labels from Casablanca?
Yeah, there are quite a few. There are, like, the second printing is, like you said, when we're talking about the first one. Let me get that real quick here, see if in my pile of records here. The difference is that Humphrey has a cigarette here. On some labels, he's missing a cigarette. There is on this one, there is no street name on the very first, I have been told. And then you got, like, it's on Sunset Boulevard or something else that got printed in like latter pressings.
I see.
And so it's changed, not really big, but it changed somewhat with Humphrey being without his cigarette, and they printed on the street name for the record company and so forth. So it changed a bit before it became the yellow label. Okay. And that varies too.
Because there are ways to identify first, second, and third press of those albums.
Cool. And and going into the real first pressing of it, like we talked about so many times, it's the one where they did a a kissing contest in America in 1974, I think it was, and they were forced by Paul and Gene Standard to record a cover called "Kissing Time," but the album was already pressed, and they stopped the pressing of the album and put that song in there. So for us that are really nerds, we want the pressing without Kissing Time.
Sure.
And that has a different matrix number and a different catalog number and so forth. So that's the ultimate first pressing.
I think the debut album was released in February of 74, and that kissing contest was either in March or April. So it was just straight after the record was released.
Yeah.
So if you got one of those without Kissing Time, it's definitely a first pressing, very very early pressing.
Yeah. I got one. It's signed with Peter Chris' autograph too. Yes,
but actually that record flopped because it only sold about 100,000, I think, which in those days in America was considered a complete failure. So there aren't that many records about to find of the original pressings.
Yeah, and I think that's why they released like 2 albums a year, because the first one came out in February of 1974, and the second one was in October of 1974, and then they moved really quickly. So I did a calculation up until I think it was. When they released Destroyer in 1976, they had released like 4 studio albums and 1 live album in like 2 years and 7 months.
Yeah, they were working pretty hard back then.
Yeah, they were. So
great.
So that's my 2 cents on the Casablanca label.
Well, I showed some stuff on the last episode, and there wasn't just enough time to show the rest of my pile. I'm going to show you, because we talked about the Warner Brothers label the last time, called the Burbank label, the one with the avenue with the trees on it. So that label also changed because I'm just going to recap here, because I have a first. The first Van Halen album, a first pressing, a US pressing. You can see it has the Burbank label, and this album is from '79. And even on the Van Halen 2 album, which was released the year after, they had already changed the labels to a white Warner Brothers label like this, which is also very common on US 80s pressing from Warner Bros. So this is even this is a German version, but the label is the same as the American one. So so if you find a Van Halen album with this label, it's post '79 for sure. Okay, Island Records we also talked about, because when they moved into the 80s, and even when they moved out of the 70s, in a way, they kind of dissed that the pink theme they had for most of the labels throughout, from the late 60s up into the 70s, and they kind of did a revamp of their whole sort of design idea. So this is Anthrax Among the Living from 1987. This is a UK first pressing. But if you find that, you can see that some of the ideas from the early Island Records, but now it has a sort of a rainbow colored theme, the rim here, and on the early pressings, of course, it was that rim was pink, but it still had this the coconut tree and all that, and the Island Record. But this is a typically 80s Island Records label. So some of the Yeah, about reissues, because we're going to talk about that as well. Because if you find a 60s or 70s album with this label, or maybe a modern looking Island label, it's definitely a repress or a reissue. Because as we talked about in one show, when the record sale was sort of not plummeting, but it was going downhill in the late 70s. And then when the CD came in 82, that's when record companies started doing reissues for the first time. So, and there was a string of sort of a cheap labels that many of the big record companies would repress albums from the 70s, but package them in a more sort of modest way. Albums that usually or originally was released in gatefold and all kinds of nice stuff were just reissued in normal sleeves. And usually there was a CBS had a nice price selection or collection series, which was a cheap series, and EMI had Fame, and they used those labels to reissue a lot of 70s, early 80s album for cheaper prices, and that was actually to keep people buying albums or buying records just after the CD came out. So you'll find a lot of
talking about the Fame. I want to go back to that one because I got some copies from Iron Maiden on the Fame label because they got printed in really annoying. Got printed in the cover. They put that Fame logo. I think those albums sound much worse than the original.
I think. Because there were a lot of I think the manufacturing processes of these sort of cheaper reissues, they kind of saved on most aspects of the production process. There's definite and even most of them were cut using that direct metal mastering technique we also talked about. Which is also it's not necessarily a cheaper way of cutting an album, but the manufacturing process is shorter, so and thereby it's cheaper, if you know what I mean. So you have more steps if you cut in lacquer than if you cut in copper. So most of these albums were sort of quickly cut, quickly manufactured, and there was a huge amount of money saved on packaging. But also, of course, they were cheaper to buy in the stores than they were originally in the 60s or 70s. But a lot of albums was reissued, and that's where the whole reissue thing started. They started doing picture discs as well. They started doing multicolored records just to get people, to still be interested in buying albums, and to compete with CDs.
Yeah, do you remember those multicultural? I mean, you got the red label and you got the blue label. The blue records. Instead of being black like this, you got a color instead, blue, red, or whatever. And from the get go, I think those sounded really bad. I mean, it changed up today. It's better quality today if you buy a colored vinyl. But in my head, still today, I'm so freaked out about those pressings. So I tend to go with the black one, just to be safe. I mean, and maybe if there is a band that I like Kiss that I really dig, I buy both of them because I think it's really cool. But I'm still today scared of the colored vinyl.
I don't really have a problem with colored vinyl, and it's because I'm not really a sound guy, so I won't be able to really tell the difference if there is a difference. But colored vinyl was not a new thing in the 80s. They've been doing that for many years. But the difference is that in the 80s they started doing it for collectors, for collecting purposes. And I think I heard a story
okay.
about Master of Puppets when that was released in 86, 85. No, 86. Yeah.
86. Yes.
That they sold so quickly, those albums, that they were just working day shifts at the record plants using whatever vinyl they had. So if they had gold vinyl, color, blue, yellow, whatever, they just put that in the press and did a run. So just to keep it it was selling like hotcakes. So it wasn't actually because, okay, we'll do 100 exclusive copies on yellow vinyl and we'll get people to pay whatever they have. But it was just a matter of keeping the supply. So, but today they'll do multiple pressings of an album in 18 different colors. And some labels are really, I'm not saying bad at it, but they're very good at it. But you know what I mean? Some people, some labels really go over the top. And of course, collectors need to have 18 different versions of the same album just on 18 different colored vinyl. So that's getting pretty big, especially now with the vinyl rebirth or whatever we're going to call it. That labels really saw a chance to make a lot of money selling the same records to the same people, just different variations. Yeah.
Big old money grab.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And now we're not talking counterfeits records where it's sort of where the albums are fake, trying to sell fake albums. We're talking bootlegs, and bootlegs is a completely different thing, because bootlegs started to appear in the late 60s. And what they are, most of these bootlegs are audience recordings of concerts. So for most of them, the audio quality on these records are not as good as an official live release. So, but what they are quite raw, because you'll hear exactly what was going on at that show. You'll hear all the mistakes, everything, and sometimes the bootlegs are sort of lost recordings, different takes from recording sessions and previously unreleased stuff, things that recordings that circulate within the collectors community, but they're not counterfeit albums. Mm-hmm. They're bootlegs, and that's a huge difference, because bootlegs are usually made in smaller quantities, because of course records cost a lot of money to print, or to press. They also did in the 70s, and you were never really not sure how many copies you could sell of these bootlegs. You were actually aiming at hardcore collectors for most of the time. But I have a couple of examples on bootlegs, because bootlegs are in a world of their own, because they are made by maybe fans or made by people trying to make some money. So, and usually doing bootlegs of famous or the biggest artists. But they never really bothered much with doing labels and doing stuff in the dead wax, or maybe even writing the correct info on the cover. So you might see, and some of the titles of the bootlegs are sort of made up. Maybe it's a piece of some words from a different, or from a song, from a famous song by the they have lots of different titles that sort of homemade in a way, and homemade is really the key word here, because bootlegs they were really homemade. So this is a bootleg record, and they were like kind of counterfeits, really. They were sort of pressed off hours in pressing plants, or maybe somebody had a contact at a pressing plant who could just sneak these in during lunch or whatever, and do 200-300 pressings. Nobody's really sure of how this works. But the label, as I said, they never bothered with doing really good designs and stuff. So they would just, sometimes they would just take whatever was lying around in the pressing plant at the moment and just stick that on, because the record needs a label, of course. But this is actually completely white. And somebody has, I think that's actually me. I wrote A and B on the label because there's no other info. So I had to put the record on and listen. Oh, that's side A and that's side B, and I just put it in myself to be able to distinguish it. That example there is actually this. It's Seven Deadly Sins. It's a recording from Gothenburg in 1988 with Iron Maiden, of course. And this one is actually. Well, there are a few spelling mistakes, of course, as you usually find in the song, in the track lists and all that. Sometimes it's in incorrect order. Sometimes it's not even from this gig. There are just various things. But I have two different copies of this with two different labels on it. This one is also it's the same music, same release, but with different labels. And this is just to show you that. There was an American band called Speak English or Die. Or was it a band or was it an album? I don't remember. It's a band. It's a band. S.O.D. they were called. Yeah. S.O.D. But somehow their labels ended up on this Iron Maiden bootleg. So these are actually this is actually called the S.O.D. version of this bootleg, and it has nothing to do with the actual content of the album. It says all rights of the manufacturer, all rights reserved, blah blah blah, around the label here. But it's just they just were probably pressing the S.O.D. album next door in the pressing plant, and they just flogged a few of the labels and stuck that on the Iron Maiden machine. Funny story, but the bootleg world is full of that, and that's kind of what makes it so fun. Bootlegs are kind of viewed upon as really badly for some people. I like bootlegs. I like listening to recordings that you can't listen to anywhere else, and they're often pressed in very small numbers. So and even the funny thing is, when bootlegs were being sort of publicly known in the late '60s, you had people like Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin. He was really into bootlegs. He thought it was a great idea, and so in the beginning there was a lot of interest from bootlegs, and some artists were really encouraging their fans to record their concerts and release it on bootlegs. But of course, as time moves on and different things happen, today some really look down on bootlegs, saying they're ripping off the artists, and but really they're for the real fans of a band, so who just can't get enough of listening to their favorite band. Mm-hmm.
I remember growing up, me and my friends were sitting in front of the stereo, listening to those old bootlegs from the 70s with Kiss, and trying to figure out what people in the audience said, because you were right there. That's why I think it's so freaking awesome. You can hear people going off and talking. And I remember at a certain point we found this bootleg. I don't remember, but it was like the early 70s. And there is a guy standing very close to the guy with the tape recorder, and Kiss comes on stage, and you can hear him saying, "Holy shit!" he never seen Kiss before, so you can imagine his shock. Going, "Whoa."
That's fun.
So
you also got to hand it to them, because some of these bootlegs are really good. The recordings are incredibly good on some of them, but you never really know. You might buy a bootleg that looks great and but just sounds horrible, and vice versa, of course. But some of them are sourced from soundboard recordings. Some of them are radio broadcasts, and they usually sound very good. And some of them were just a microphone stuck in a pocket of a pair of jeans, 1972, and they sound like that, but they're still very honest. It's fun. Fun. Okay.
Really fun.
Mike, you did a lot about Vanity covers and all that. We've done labels across the years. We've done a bit of fun with bootlegs. I think in a way we've come to the end of the road of the label series. Don't you think?
I think so too. Yeah. I think so too.
All right.
But for the next time, we're going to have time on the next episode, we're going to have some fun.
I like fun.
This is going to be a killer show. Let me tell you. I've got some stuff. I've got some stuff, Mike.
Are we talking about Kiss? Are we talking about Kiss?
Maybe.
No.
I have some stuff.
Maybe. Oh
my God! I have
so
some
excited.
stuff that will make you wet your pants.
Oh wow! All right.
Okay.
Well.
All right.
Well. On that note, we got to end on that note.
How's that for teaser?
Okay.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I want to be here next week. I want to be here.
Yeah.
I'm taking part of this right now.
I'm going to be here next week.
Damn.
I'm definitely here. Definitely.
Cool.
Yeah, we got to make that happen.
Cool.
All right.
Yeah.
So can't wait for next week. Hit the website, soundsonvinyl.com. We got all kinds of cool stuff over there. We got video, we got audio, we got descriptions, we got timestamps. We got all kinds of fun stuff over there. So go and check that out.
Yeah.
And until next week when we all pee our pants. Later.
Later.
Later.